So in the next panel, we're going to learn what authors' organisations are doing and how they're adapting to support authors and ensure that authors can still keep working and making a living. And I'm sure that by putting these collective responses together with the individual responses we've just heard as the International Authors Forum, we can indeed stay together and stay connected, and above all keep on creating at a time when, as Carlos put very well, is something we need to do so much now. So John, over to you.
Thanks, Katie. Thank you very much. And thank you all for those presentations. I expected a great deal from this morning. It's morning where I am. I expected to feel nervous because I'm presenting. I expected to feel anxious because of technology. I'm always anxious that the technology is going to fail. For some reason, I didn't expect to be so deeply moved. And I really have been by all of your comments and especially by the poetry. Just to add my little bit about the new connection with nature. I moved my family very early on in the lockdown. I moved my family to a small house that I've been preparing for my own retirement, deep in the wilderness of Northern Ontario here in Canada. Bears and moose and wolves all around. And when we arrived, it's beside a river, and the river was frozen solid. You could walk on the river. This was the middle of March. You could walk on the river. And over the period of lockdown, I watched the river thaw and all the ice go downstream, and I watched all the animals return to the river. And that's something that I had never seen before as an urban Canadian. I had never experienced that deep connection. And I took that as a gift of this really horrible time. I have a lot of relatives in the United States, and it's really been quite a worrisome time for all of us. But that experience up north has been a real gift. So thank you for reminding me all of that, because I'm back in the city now. And now let's move on. We're going to chat with a few representatives of authors' organizations from around the world. And just on the broad theme of what's coming next, you know, the future of writing and publishing in a post-COVID world, what we've gone through, how the organizations have adapted. We have a couple of quick video presentations from representatives who couldn't make it to the live event. So I will share my screen and I'll share those with you right now.
Hello from the Philippines, this is Faye of Gantala Press. We're a feminist literary collective that has been producing books and zines since 2015. How has the pandemic affected our work? Well, we were about to open a feminist space or bookshop when COVID-19 broke, so now everything is suspended. We are working from home and are relying so much on the internet to remain connected with one another and with the world at large. As a small press, we have been focusing all of our efforts in helping the more vulnerable sectors, such as assisting in fundraising campaigns to help peasant families. Unfortunately, our government has been nothing but corrupt and incompetent in handling the pandemic. So the Philippines has the worst statistics in Southeast Asia when it comes to COVID-19. We are still reeling from our president's pardon of U.S. Marine Joseph Scott Pemberton, who brutally murdered Jennifer Laude, a transgender Filipina, in 2014. We see that as another betrayal of public trust. Meanwhile, activists and mass leaders are arrested on false charges or summarily executed by state forces. The so-called anti-terror bill has been signed into law, an attempt to further silence critics of this misogynistic and oppressive government. What keeps us going is the strength that we draw from our comrades and sisters in the struggle. We are still able to write, and write we do. We were able to publish a collection of narratives written by peasant women during the pandemic. Ironically, the crisis has also provided us more opportunities to collaborate with small presses and feminist associations in Indonesia, Malaysia, Vietnam, and the United Kingdom. We resist the so-called new normal by persistently imagining and hoping that we can help shape it, if only by continuing to write and publish. We send love and strength to our friends at the IAF and to the rest of the world in our collective struggle for justice and peace. Thank you very much.
So that was Faye Cura from Gantala Press in the Philippines. And now I'm going to try once again to share my screen. There we go. And this is Olivia Lanchester from the Australian Society of Authors.
Hi everyone, my name is Olivia Lanchester. I'm the CEO of the Australian Society of Authors. Australia has fared pretty well this year from a health perspective. We've been so lucky. Our government has adopted fairly aggressive restrictions, and the infection rate has therefore been kept low. From an economic perspective, we're still waiting really to see the impact on author earnings. So the ASA will be conducting a survey of our members next month to measure that impact. On the good news, book sales have been strong. We saw an initial dip in the market followed by a swift recovery. And I suspect that our high-profile authors will actually hold up pretty well this year. In fact, backlist titles have enjoyed a boost. People have been reading in lockdown and under restrictions. The book has proven to be wonderfully resilient. But I do worry that for emerging authors, I think it has been tremendously tough to have to break into the market this year or really gain attention. And even looking forward, given that we are in an economic downturn, we're in a recession in Australia, I do worry that publisher decision making generally is likely to be relatively conservative. We also think that international rights sales for our authors will have slowed, but we won't really again know that until after we have conducted our survey, and obviously we'll see the trickle-down effect of that in years to come. For our children's book authors, they've definitely experienced a decline in their earnings due to cancelled appearances in schools, libraries and festivals. Schools are bringing authors back into the classroom now. Public libraries, however, are still closed for in-person events. What have we done at the ASA? One initiative we began was an online training series to help authors pivot to virtual appearances and to develop their own digital assets. And in fact, that will be useful even beyond the pandemic. We had really wonderful feedback from that online series of webinars. The other thing that worries me a little bit is we've got a really wonderful, thriving independent book selling scene in Australia, and the drive to online shopping does just make us hope that we'll still have our independent bookshops come through the pandemic, because they are so terribly important in the hand selling of Australian titles that they do for our authors. And lastly, our government is conducting a parliamentary inquiry. It's just announced a look into Australia's creative and cultural industries to ascertain the economic and non-economic benefits of those industries and where there might be opportunity for improvement. We will be making a submission to government and really calling on government to better invest in the sustainability of writing careers. That's likely to be our focus over the next 12 months, this issue of author earnings and what we can do to ensure that our authors are able to sustain a career. I hope you are all well and keeping safe. Thanks so much.
That was Olivia. And I wish we could have both Olivia and Faye with us. Unfortunately, I believe it's the middle of the night where they are. Okay, so let's hear from some folks who are here with us live. We have representatives from 5 other creative organizations around the world, including my own here in Canada. But let's start with Rima Selli, Legal and Policy Manager at DAX, which is a visual artists' rights management organization in the UK. Do we have Rima here?
Yes, I'm here. Thanks, John. Great, thank you. Yes, so as John mentioned, I'm from DAX, which is a visual arts organization in the UK. I was speaking actually to an artist this morning, so I think it's actually very well timed that we're having this conversation. And this artist has been working effectively from her home to create her works, not her studio. She's unfortunately had to give up rent of her studio because of the impact of COVID. And we were talking about the issues that she was facing at the moment, and she said to me that all social issues are artist issues. What does she mean by this? Well, let's unpack it. Artists are some of the lowest paid members of society in the UK. The average earning of an artist was found to be around £5,000 in a study that took place a couple of years ago. And at the same time, the average earning in the UK was £21,000 a year. So we can really see that there's a massive difference between what an artist earns and what the average person in the UK is earning. Now, if you're earning £5,000 a year as an artist, obviously you need to sustain yourself by having lots of other jobs. So we know that a lot of artists that we know at DAX are taking jobs in the education field, they become lecturers, or they might do something more commercial, like have a freelance or contract role with a commercial producer of artworks. So in this sense, really, so as the artist said, so many issues become artist issues. It's tax issues, legal issues, employment law issues. The artist I was talking to said that she was having particular problems with childcare. She was also having problems with rent, for example, with her studio now having to be being evicted from it. So I think what the picture that she was painting to me and the picture that I want to now paint to you is that looking at how artists can survive this pandemic, and authors as well, we need to look at everything in the whole. During the coronavirus pandemic, the UK government really were quite quick to come out with a bunch of packages. But unfortunately, a lot of these packages did not support the reality of what an artist or someone in what we, I guess, would call the gig economy is going through. The fact that artists were balancing self-employed income with 0 hours income or fixed-term contracts actually made them, in some cases, ineligible for the coronavirus job retention scheme. So really, I think the problems that were being faced here in the whole is that there isn't an understanding from government about how an artist or how an author actually works and actually earns their money. And without that understanding from government, then there can't be the right packages, the right care, the funding that will get us out of what is now going to be a quite long enduring recession. Another impact that I would like to touch on is that of the art market itself. So the art market is a very valuable commodity. Globally, it's worth $64 billion a year. And the UK has the second biggest art market in the world. But this is something that DAX is very concerned about during COVID because so many art auction houses and galleries had to cancel their shows altogether, or auctions were taking place online. So they weren't making the sales that they used to make, but also the artist's ability to get a royalty from sales through the artist resale right was actually being much marginalized. Artist resale right is a law that isn't available in every country. So when auctions were taking place in the US, for example, online, rather than being based in the UK, artist resale right royalties did not apply for artists. So we can already see that some of the ways in which artists can make their money, some of the financialization offers available to creators is now actually being watered down more and more. What do we do about this? Well, our two biggest priorities post-COVID is a tighter relationship with governments, ensuring that they know exactly what the problems are of artists, of creators, and basically individual content makers. And then also to really ensure that the rights that an artist can enjoy in the UK are available throughout the world. So that's an international resale right, a resale right that is available in big art markets like the USA. I think that's pretty much all I have to say. So I'm going to thank you very much for listening to me on this and pass over to my colleagues.
Thank you, Rima. You make a very, very good point about all social issues being artist issues. And I know that certainly the disruption of education here in Canada has had a huge impact on the creators' economy as well. Okay, so we'll go now to our colleague Umair Kazi, staff attorney at the Authors Guild in the US. Umair.
Hi, everyone. Thanks, first of all, for sharing so many of your thoughtful sort of reflections about this very strange time. I'm in New York, and the sort of most bizarre experience of the last few months has been, well, in March and early April, listening to ambulance sirens, because as you all know, New York had a huge death toll. And then also driving through Times Square and not seeing anybody there. So even though, you know, nature hasn't quite reclaimed New York yet, it was still an image of dystopia in many ways. So I'm actually, I think my bio might have been an older bio. I'm now the director of policy and advocacy for the Authors Guild, and I have been involved in our efforts to mitigate this kind of severe damage that authors in the United States have been facing through COVID-19. In our member survey that we did early on at the start of the pandemic, we found that almost half of our members had lost some sort of income, and the average decline in income was 43%. So you can imagine this was back in April. That decline has only precipitated since then, and the factors for those declines, I think Rima alluded to them in the UK, and similar situation in the US, are loss of freelancing opportunities, loss of adjuncting positions. Authors who had new books out were very profoundly hurt because the bookstores were closed, so they couldn't go and have any sort of book readings. So it has been pretty stark to see how a population or I guess a demographic of workers in these advanced economies that are basically essential to the cultural image of a country are also its most precarious citizens. And in my mind, it kind of shows the crisis already. Serious problems like the question of an artist's employment. Authors in the U.S., as in many places in the U.K., are work on are largely independent contractors. They may have some sort of mixed income, where they, to support their meager sort of income from writing, which on average is now $20,000 a year in the United States. They may have other jobs, and or some may just try to sort of skate by on what they're earning from their professional author activities. Being an independent contractor is sort of is a very precarious situation because you don't have any unemployment benefits, and that's something that we saw appear to be a huge problem in the United States, because when incomes declined, regular workers were able to get state unemployment and have their income sort of sustain over the period of the pandemic. But authors didn't really have that opportunity. There was a provision in the CARES Act, which is the U.S.'s response to the pandemic, that allowed freelance workers and independent contractors to be eligible for weekly unemployment benefits and the like. However, the way the law was written, it left ambiguous as to whether freelance workers that could continue to telework from home would be able to get those benefits. And the Authors Guild and a lot of other creative rights organizations have been involved in this front. We've been writing to people in Washington to ask for clarification. And to some extent, we did get half clarification from the Department of Labor, which said that yes, if you're a freelance worker that has experienced diminution in income, you could you are eligible for unemployment benefits. However, the clarification was focused pretty much entirely on rideshare workers, the Uber and Lyft drivers. So the states took that as an opportunity to start denying claims to authors, because in the US, the way it works is the states are the administrators of the unemployment insurance and unemployment benefits. So it was, and traditionally especially a lot of Republican leaning states, they're very much antagonistic to social benefits. So that created a huge problem where, one, there was inconsistency in terms of how these, they're called the pandemic unemployment assistance benefits, were meted out between the various states. But also we just, we were getting inundated with concerns about authors being denied, even though they weren't getting any work because their teaching opportunities had expired, or the clients that they were writing for had gone out of business, or they were covering sporting events or music concerts and the like. So those opportunities were just not there. So that's sort of the general picture. And the one thing that I also want to mention before I turn over to my next colleague is, a lot of people touched on the themes of loneliness, and I think the Authors Guild recognized that early on, that authors would need a way to sort of still keep the conversation going, even if they were not meeting at bookstores and not having readings. So we also pivoted, as Olivia mentioned, Olivia from the ASA, we also put together a bunch of webinars to help authors build digital assets, and we started a support authors campaign where we paired a prominent, highly successful author with an author that had a book coming out, and the successful author sort of used their social media presence to amplify the profile of the debut author. So that's what we've been doing in terms of making sure that the conversation keeps going. And in my role, I've been working a lot on getting these lobbying Congress to clarify the situation of freelance workers and mixed earners who are also, I believe Rima from the UK mentioned the problem if you have some income coming from a traditional source, but a bulk of your income might be coming from a freelance source, the COVID relief packages are still disqualifying you. So I'm happy to answer any questions. I know it's a lot to cover, and there's a lot more. So, but thank you so much for giving me this opportunity and sharing all of your insights.
Thank you so much, Umer. Yeah, we had similar problems here with our emergency relief plans, but I will actually go to my chair right now, Anita Dare, here in Canada. We'll just cross the border from the United States to Canada. And for those of you, a quick geography lesson, Anita and I are in the same country, and we're still separated by a couple thousand kilometers. Is that right, Anita?
Yeah, about that, I think. Certainly a time zone away. Thank you, John. You are a lovely host, as always, and thank you to the IAF for having me speak. I am the current chair of the Writers Union of Canada. I'm also an author. My 15th book was just published just at the start of the shutdown. I'll talk a little bit about that later on. But to let you know, if the Writers Union of Canada advocates and represents this country's professionally published authors, we currently have members sitting around 2,100. When the lockdown happened, there's never a good time for a pandemic, But our lockdown began just at the start of our spring launch season, which was pretty devastating for authors and publishers and bookstores. I think one of the things that has really been brought to my awareness in a very visceral way is how delicate our writing and publishing ecosystem is. So when the shutdown happened, the shutdown was announced in our country on March 12th. Launches were canceled, which meant that orders from bookstores were canceled because bookstores were closed. They're not going to stock books that they can't sell. Writing contracts were canceled, schools were shut down, festivals and conferences were canceled. All of these things that I think that we all suffered globally certainly happened in Canada, and it was pretty devastating. The Writers Union, I'm so proud of our staff. The Writers Union adapted and shifted so quickly. The office shut down, so our staff began working from home and meeting virtually and brainstorming and really coming up with creative ideas as to what are our writers suffering right now, most immediately, how can we help them, and how can we adapt some of our programs. So one of the first things that we did was to work with another organization, the Writers Trust, and we developed a Canadian Writers Emergency Relief Fund, and that was drawing from our organization's emergency resources plus donations, and we managed to give immediate grants, gifts to writers who were in extreme need, and that fund was extremely popular and needed, and it ran out of funds, I think, early in the summer. John will have the exact date of that, but we ended up giving out, I've got the number here, $376,000 to 251 writers. So we were really pleased to be able to do that, and it was really gratefully received by our writers. We've heard from them. We also started a series of professional development webinars, which I think was in our long-term plans. So this was just accelerated. We got them going pretty quick. And again, yeah, they were really well received, and we covered so many different subjects, you know, everything from taxes, for how to use social media properly, how to be innovative in these new times, even a webinar on emotional wellness and fitness, and so much more. So they're happening on a regular basis, and they will continue because they, like I say, they've been really well received. We also administer a public reading and a school readings program across the country. Well, the school readings is just in Ontario, but anyway. And with everything shut down, no physical appearances, we shifted that to be able to provide funds for virtual readings as well. And so we've made sure, anticipating that we are going to be shut down, or could very well be shut down in one form or another throughout the next year. Certainly for the fall-winter season, we've extended these virtual readings, and we'll see how well that develops. Canada, by and large, I think Canadians and Canadian writers are fairly pleased with how our Canadian government has adapted and understood the situation. This is maybe a very different from what was experienced in the UK and for you guys in the US. The government established a Canadian emergency relief benefit for people who had lost work because of the pandemic, and our union, John, working with some of our other partner organizations, lobbied our Minister of Heritage, who is also a writer, a published writer, which is helpful and very receptive, to make sure that that benefit would, writers would be eligible for it. And some of the complications of, you know, receiving royalty payments here and there wouldn't knock us out of being eligible, because there's a very strict set of requirements to be eligible for this CERB, Canadian Emergency Relief Benefit. So the government did provide that. It put $2,000 a month in the hands of primarily, I mean, it really made sure gig workers were eligible for that, and certainly writers. They've extended it, and we're going to hear today, there's a throne speech today, and we are hopeful that we're going to hear that it is going to be extended into next year. So there's that. So back to the shutdown with launches, spring launches being canceled, authors needed to find a way to get word out about their new books, to support their publishers, to reach their readers in ways that maybe they didn't think of previously. And the Writers Union supported that as much as we could. We put tips for how to do virtual readings on our website. We've reached out to members. We've communicated with them on a regular basis on what they're doing and trying to share word about that and share ideas. My own novel, shameless self-promotion, but my own novel, I mean, I went through this, right? This is, it's called You Don't Have to Die in the End. Somebody pointed out that it was a brilliant title for these days. I mean, I don't want to capitalize on that, but they also said I should maybe make a mask with that on there. So I've done that, you know. So that was one of the things I did. And, you know, I've talked to other writers, and I think other writers are seeing if something like that is possible. To get word out about my launch, it's a young adult novel. So I even got myself on TikTok and did a little bit of dancing, feeling ridiculous, but I did that. Shared all of this on social media. You know, writers interviewed each other. I did a series of YouTube videos, as many other authors have. We've got some brilliant series of YouTube channels from authors, and we're just trying to share word about all of that. Because I have connections in the film industry, and I write and I act in that industry and produce a little bit, I produced a professional short film. I adapted a scene from my novel and hired union actors and a crew, and we put together this nice little film that is now on the Thin Air Winnipeg International Writers Festival website. That festival is going on right now, virtual like so many, and they asked authors to really come up with different ways of showcasing their books. So there's that, and that might be something other authors may like to do. It's just sort of a variation, I guess, on a book trailer. It's just something a little different. Yeah, lots of virtual launches. I think that initially the virtual launches were kind of fun to tune in and watch, but there were so many virtual launches. I think authors really needed to think about ways to do them a little differently, because we're all suffering a little bit from Zoom fatigue. You know, that does happen. So the virtual launches ended up having lots of eyeballs on, but a problem with that was that it didn't stimulate the sales by and large that an in-person book launch would. And so, you know, with this just snowballs, you know, the loss of sales, the loss of buzz, all of this will affect writers. Of course, it's pretty much a lost season for some, but we're still trying, and you know, we're doing what we can, and there's some really interesting stuff out there. And so I think I'd just like to say, authors, as we all know, are resilient, creative, hopeful. We all have to be hopeful. And I'm sure that when we eventually get through this, we're going to be stronger. Of course we will. We will have expanded our skills and our ideas. We've really, we've been there, you know, to reach out to the general public, readers who are looking for entertainment, teachers who need a little extra support. So there's all kinds of new connections that have been made that I think will serve us well. The Writers Union will continue to lobby government on matters like our broken copyright legislation, which has been ongoing for so long, and a few other things. We're also hopeful that this Canadian emergency relief benefit that is being extended is a first step into a guaranteed basic income program, which we're talking to government about with some of our industry partners. And it seems to be quite a positive thought towards that in general in Canada. So we might see something like that happen, which would certainly benefit authors. So I guess that's all I have for you right now. Thank you for your time.
That was a ton, Anita. Thank you very much. I'm conscious of the time a little bit, but we did start maybe 10, 15 minutes late. So we're just going to go past the hour, and we'll just take as much time as we need. I'm not sure, we had a little technical difficulty getting a hold of the Ghana Association of Writers, but I understand that Francis Glormita is here now. So Francis, if you're here and can speak to us, give us an update from Ghana.
Yeah, greetings from Accra, Ghana, to all of you. And special thanks to Kathy for inviting us to participate in this discussion. Ghana had its first case of coronavirus on March 12th, and immediately after that, the Writers Association Secretariat had to go on a break. We closed down the Secretariat for some time. So about 3 weeks later, we realized that we couldn't have been out of office for that long. So we decided to come back. And instead of our field works that we would normally have engaged in, we decided that we should work from the office. And the works we assigned to ourselves from the office are writing proposals for funding from corporate bodies and also from government. So that is what we engaged in up to some time that we realized that it was safe for us to have some of the events physically, observing the coronavirus protocols and so on. But we have been affected greatly by the coronavirus pandemic in many ways. There was a research conducted by Decode's economic and financial consulting firm, which will support the fact that we have been affected. That research states that those in real estate business, e-commerce, and also lawyers and those who are in medicine, that is those who operate hospitals, are the worst to suffer from the hardship of economic hardship of the virus or the pandemic. And most of our members, over 800 members we have, most of them they write because they write as their hobbies. They don't earn from writing per se, they write as a hobby. Therefore, if their original professional businesses are affected, it affects their mindset and also affects their writing. So in that way, we are also affected as an association. But within the same situation, we also realized that it was an opportunity created because the lockdown created a slowdown movement. Therefore, people had to stay at home. So some of our writers used that period to also finish their manuscripts. And also because writing is more or less a documentation of events, the pandemic created different scenarios from which they had developed new manuscripts. So in a positive and negative way, we can say that we have been influenced in both ways. Now, the good thing is that many of our writers are young people, or they are quite young. So the probability of them writing a good number of pieces in their lifetime is high. Therefore, we can say that the future for writing in Ghana is bright. Even before the pandemic, as an association, we were having issues with financial support for activities. We're having publishing difficulties. We're having marketing difficulties. So all these had increased due to the pandemic. But one good thing about the pandemic, which we also realized, is that reading has increased during the period. So some publishers decided to use, develop applications that people could order books from them, and then they use motorbikes and to deliver the books to people at home. So a little research that has been conducted revealed that book reading during the pandemic increased in Ghana. And one other thing we also did as an association is to form advocacy group so that we can approach government, because government at the time was supporting industries. So we also formed an advocacy group comprising the Ghana Association of Writers, the Ghana Publishers Association, Printers and Paper Converters Association, and Booksellers Association, that we come as to make a concerted effort and approach government for support. So some of our members were in the process of being supported by government, and also we decided to engage with the Ghana Library Authority. They used to buy books of our members for the various libraries across the country. But that stopped along the way, long before the COVID. So we decided that we should go back and approach them so that we can have that slot for our members to supply books to them for the various libraries. And that we did because we realized that writing will increase immediately after the pandemic, because during the lockdown, people were still turning out manuscripts so that we can have an outlet for those books. We also approached the Creative Arts Council of Ghana to support some of our activities. We are still in the process of having that done. And then the association itself also decided that we should create a Writers' Enterprise Fund to support writers during the period and also into the future. And we're looking for support from corporate bodies. And we all know during that period, a corporate body also suffered economically. So it's been difficult to get support from them. Few ones that have promised have not actually, are not forthcoming yet, but we just hope that they will make some contribution that we can put into those funds in order to support our members. One other thing that we also considered during the period, which we will be launching in October, is to have ebook app. The ebook app that we use, most of our members sign on onto Amazon, but we decided that we should have one for the association during this time. So I can say that the pandemic actually brought about a lot of innovations from our end. So the ebook app is ready now. We'll be launching soon, specifically in October, so that our members will be able to upload their works there and also earn some money from there. Then one other thing we also did during the pandemic to keep our members writing was to call for entries for an anthology. So they submitted their works on that we are editing currently. The publications committee of the association is working on that to edit it such that we can have an anthology. So in a way, we have always just been trying to find out how we can engage our members who are in difficulty because of the job in which their profession in which they are being affected by the pandemic, but to give them a sort of hope by providing them with a platform to continue to write and also trying to support them financially to continue to write. So that is what we have been doing here in Ghana. I'm not sure it's too different from the earlier presenters, what I've heard so far. There are similarities in all that we are doing. I think the specifics to the various experiences and countries is what brings about the differences. Otherwise, I think we as writers have gone through difficulties. At the same time, opportunities were created for us to explore.
Yes,
Thank you
Francis,
very
I
much.
agree. I agree. There are many similarities in everything we've been hearing, and I'm so glad that we were able to get to you. And I want to congratulate you on the banner in the background. We're banner comrades here.
Yes.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have one more presenter today, and I just want to remind everyone who's watching, all of the attendees, that if you have questions for any of the panelists that you've heard today, please put your question in the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen. So finally, we're going to Vera Michalski-Hoffman, the UNESCO Goodwill Ambassador in the field of books and reading. Vera?
Yes, so as you know, I'm not a representative of an authors organization. And I have to say, I'm running out of time because I had another meeting at 5. So I'll be necessarily short. In fact, I'm going to speak to you as in my double capacity as a publisher and as the founder of the Jan Michalski Foundation for Literature and Writing. Because in that double capacity, I've seen what we could do to help authors and what the impact of the crisis has been on the publishing trade. Of course, my experience is restricted to, say, Switzerland, France, and Poland. And many of the packages that the different governments have done are the same from country to country. But we've experienced in Switzerland that writers and, and freelancers in general, be it illustrators or people working on a freelance basis, had been pretty much, including publishing, some of the smaller publishing, had been left out of any government help. And that has been extremely difficult. So in my capacity at the foundation, we get lots and lots of people asking for financial help to see what can be done to help. In my capacity as publisher, we have seen many books, of course, many book launches pushed back. We have seen the loneliness of writers. We have seen all the things that have been mentioned by previous panelists. And I believe it is very much, the job of a publisher to keep the contact with the writers and to sustain them financially and keep hope running and foster resilience and sort of resistance towards this very uncommon situation, which might last until 2022, from what we hear. And we have to learn how to live with the virus. So what we have done in France, in my publishing house, is to, as you know, France counts very much on a very active booksellers community. And what most publishers have done, which of course then reacts favorably on writers as well, in order to increase book sales, is to give special financial conditions to booksellers, enabling them to order more books and sell more books, and then of course produce more royalties for writers. And then we have been active as well in trying to launch, and of course in very different ways, in some reduced ways, and in some cases we've had to change programs and planning for literary festivals 3 to 4 times in order to adapt to ever-changing sanitary conditions and rules. And we've seen that, of course, I'm the last person to say anything against Zoom and the virtual launching and everything, but we so feel that the book trade is made of people, and that they are so happy when they meet, and even in reduced numbers, and even in a half-full theater, they really need to be able to exchange and talk. And we've had the pleasure of being able to do that in the Nancy Book Festival, in the Morges, and then in many other places. And this brings so much, community, sense of a community to people, because we are all on the same boat. And I'm getting a bit sick of the antagonism between publishers and authors and all that. And we have to realize we're all on the same boat, that this pandemic has challenged our intelligence and our imagination, as Anita was saying it. And I think in a way, we come out stronger of all that, even if there is a temporary decrease in book sales. But just, you know, maybe as a hope and maybe positive in a sort of strange way, when you see the impact the pandemic has had on what we call in French le spectacle vivant, meaning, you know, performing in front of audiences, be it music or theater. I don't mean movie theaters. People are, of course, they've been impacted by a decrease of 74% in sales in France. It's the only figure I'm going to share, whereas the book trade has had only 25% of decrease. Now, as our friend from Ghana was saying, people are reading more, and I think the book industry is now benefiting from the fact that many other things are closed, are still not possible, and that people are spending their money on books, physical books or ebooks. And that's going to be the last thing I'm saying today.
Thank you so much, Vera. I'm glad that we could hear from you, and I'm sorry that we kept you from your other meeting. But those were very important words. I think actually that we're out of time. I'm noticing that we don't have any questions in the Q&A, so I just want to thank everybody. This has been really such a fascinating discussion, and I just want to say, and I hope we all feel this way, I think we do, how wonderful it's been just to be able to connect across so many miles after so many months in our own rooms. I'd been hoping to see all of you at various events around the world this year. Canada was going to be the nation of honor at the Frankfurt Book Fair in October. And not being able to do so has really been a blow to everybody's morale. And it's lovely to at least be in touch this way. I'll turn it over to Katie for final words. Katie?
Hi, John, thank you. Our final words, well, to say thank you to you. It's been a pleasure to share the hosting of this event with you. On behalf of FUIS, I'd like to thank all the participants and the audience for all of your, well, for being here. Participants obviously for what they've said, and the International Authors Forum, which FUIS is very proud to be a part of. It's been a real pleasure to bring our diary to life in a new way today. And we look forward to staying together during this ongoing period of difficulty. But also, I think, of renewed appreciation and understanding of the need to support each other, to listen to each other, and to come together and be united in our diversity, which is, of course, what the International Authors Forum holds very dear. So thank you, everybody.